A German fighter pilot could win every fight and still lose the war. By 1944, Germany had better pilots, deadly aircraft, and a system that was working. American bombers were getting destroyed. Everything made sense until one aircraft changed the rules. Because the P-51 didn't just fight differently, it made the entire German strategy useless. And once that happened, there was no way to recover. American bombers flew straight into Germany, 27,000 feet in the air, freezing temperatures, oxygen masks fogging, and no protection. German pilots didn't rush to meet them. They waited. They knew exactly where American escort fighters had to turn back. So they stayed just beyond that line. And the moment the bombers crossed it, they attacked, wave after wave. Bombers fell out of the sky. Crews didn't come back. From Germany's perspective, the system was working. But that system depended on one thing: the escorts leaving. At first, the P-51 didn't look like anything special. It was rushed into production. Early versions struggled at high altitude. Nothing about it suggested it would dominate the sky. Then, engineers changed one thing. They gave it the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. Now it could fly higher, faster, and more importantly, farther. Still, German pilots weren't impressed. It didn't outturn their fighters at low speed. It didn't hit harder. So they treated it like any other aircraft, until one mission proved it wasn't. March 4th, 1944. American P-51s escorted bombers all the way to Berlin. Over 1,000 miles round trip. German pilots waited like always, waiting for the escorts to turn back. They never did. For the first time, American fighters were still there, deep over Germany. And then something worse happened. They didn't just escort, they stayed. So why didn't they have to leave? A German fighter pilot had about 90 minutes of fuel. That was the limit. Every decision came with pressure. Climb too high, you burn too much. Chase too long, you might not make it back. Stay too late, you don't land. Even winning could be dangerous, because fuel didn't care if you were winning. Now compare that to the P-51 with drop tanks. It could stay in the air for 7 hours. 7. For the German pilot, this changed everything. The American didn't need to rush. He could wait, circle above, leave, and come back later. The fight didn't end when you escaped. It ended when he decided it did. And that turned the entire battlefield upside down. For years, German pilots were the hunters. They chose when to attack, when to disengage, when to go home. Now they didn't control any of that. P-51s flew ahead of the bombers. They waited above German airfields. They caught fighters as they climbed. Before they were ready, before they had speed, before they had a chance. For the German pilots, this meant one thing. You were no longer entering a fight. You were being found. And once that started happening, skill stopped being enough. German pilots were some of the best in the world. More experienced, more disciplined, hundreds of combat hours. Some had dozens of victories. Some had over 100. But none of that matters if you can't stay in the fight. Imagine this. You take off and climb hard to 25,000 feet. Your ground controller calls it out. Bombers incoming. You see them. Dozens of B-17s, tight formation, and above them, P-51s. You push forward again. You dive through the escorts. Line up a bomber. Fire. Smoke. Fire. It starts going down. You pull up, scanning the sky, and now they're on you. Mustangs, fast, high, already turning in. You brake left, hard, drive to pick up speed. You shake one, then another. For a moment you've survived. Then you check your fuel. You've been in the air too long. The needle is low. Too low. You have minutes. Not enough for another fight. Not enough for another mistake. You turn for home. You have to. The P-51 doesn't. He climbs back up, finds another formation, finds another target, maybe even finds you again, on your way out. And tomorrow it happens again. You take off, climb, fight, leave early while they stay. Again and again and again. For the German pilot, this wasn't just frustrating, it meant something much worse. No matter how good you were, no matter how many times you won, you were fighting an enemy that never ran out of time. And eventually, you do. And when one side keeps coming back, while the other keeps leaving, collapse isn't sudden, it's inevitable. Germany could still build aircraft, factories were still producing fighters. In fact, by 1944, Germany was building more planes than ever before. But that didn't solve the problem, because planes don't fight wars, pilots do. And experienced pilots were disappearing. Men with 100 victories, replaced by pilots with barely 100 hours. They weren't ready, and now they were facing something no training could prepare them for. An enemy that never had to leave. More P-51s arrived every week. More time in the air. More pressure. For the German pilot, there was no reset, only survival. By the time Germany understood the real problem, they tried to adapt. They changed tactics, shorter engagements, faster attacks, hit the bombers quickly, then escape. But that only worked if you could escape. And now you couldn't, because the P-51 was still there, waiting. They tried climbing higher, but the Mustangs followed. They tried diving away, but the Mustangs could stay in the fight longer. They tried avoiding combat entirely, but the Mustangs didn't need permission to engage. They came looking. And then something worse happened. American fighters stopped just escorting bombers. They started hunting German aircraft to the ground, strafing airfields, destroying planes before they could even take off, catching pilots before they even entered the fight. For the German pilot, the danger wasn't just in the sky anymore, it was everywhere. By early 1944, during operations like Big Week, entire waves of German fighters were being pulled into the air and cut down. Not because they lacked skill, but because they were outnumbered, outlasted, and constantly pressured. Every mission cost them experienced pilots they couldn't replace, and every loss made the next mission weaker. It became a cycle. Fewer experienced pilots, higher losses, less training time, less training, even more losses. Over and over, until the system broke. And by the time they understood the real problem, that it wasn't the aircraft, but the time it could stay in the air, they had already lost too many pilots to recover. The P-51 didn't win because it was better in a dogfight. There were moments, many moments, when German pilots had the advantage. They could climb faster, turn tighter, strike harder with their cannons. In the right situation, they could win. But the problem was they couldn't choose how long that situation lasted. Every fight had a timer. Fuel. Always fuel. At some point, no matter how well things were going, they had to leave. The P-51 didn't. It could stay longer, which meant it could wait longer. It could watch. It could choose when to engage and when not to. It could leave a bad fight and come back to a better one. Over time, that changes everything. Because war isn't decided by one fight. It's decided by who is still there for the next one. And the next. And the next. For the German pilot, winning once didn't matter. if the same enemy came back 5 more times. And that's what the P-51 allowed. Not just victory, but persistence. Relentless constant pressure until the other side had nothing left. And in the end, that's what decided the air war. Not speed, not firepower, not even skill. Time. Who could stay and who couldn't. Because in war, the side that stays is the side that wins. Germany never found a way to counter it